I'm Anthony Gethers.
And I'm Greg Weiss.
And we are the hosts of CASE-4-BASS.
Hello, everybody. This is Amedeo Beef Ciminnisi, bass player, and you're watching CASE-4-BASS.
Today, we have Amedeo Crescini. Is that correct?
Ciminnisi.
Ciminnisi. I couldn't read it. I couldn't read it properly. I apologize.
Amedeo Beef Ciminnisi.
Yep.
Okay.
I've known Beef for more than a few decades, and we hooked up a long time ago when I was first very green in bands, and he was playing trombone in a band called Spectrum, who's still, after 5 decades, still killing it. And they're playing everywhere. And I was always so impressed and as to how kind these guys were to up and coming players. They let me on stage when I was first happening. But enough about me. I want to introduce my guest and welcome to the show. And Anthony, I will let you begin with the first questions.
All right, so I always ask this. So, Beef, in reference to playing the bass, how did you find the bass? Did the bass find you?
I think I was really drawn to the bass as a kid, believe it or not. Just listening to music, it was something I always heard and I always kind of keyed in on as being something I really liked. I couldn't tell you what it was at the time, but I just knew it was percolating in there. So I was listening to it. And so I was, listening to a lot of the bubblegum stuff that a lot of super young kids listen to when you're in 3rd and 4th grade. You're listening to the stuff that's on the radio, the Archies, the Partridge Family, stuff like that. That was on, hit AM radio at the time. Kind of keying in on some of those things. And I knew I wanted to play actually at a very young age, but my parents really weren't in a position to afford an instrument and nor the lessons at the time. So when the opportunity came in school to play an instrument, I picked the one, of course, that was free, which was the trombone. That's the one. So that's what started me off on the musical journey, so to speak.
Okay, so you almost did like Flea from the Chili Peppers play trombone, by the way. Yes. A lot of people don't know that he's a trombonist. Yeah, so he kind of went from trombone first. Then the bass found him, and obviously we know him as Flea, the bass player today. So in reference to that, when did you finally reach the bass? Because you started off with trombone, and then all of a sudden you found yourself playing the instrument. So
okay, so basically the chronology of it was, so you start trombone in 4th grade, and then you're in your school bands and stuff, and as a youngster you really don't have the same opportunity to buy your own stuff, so to speak. So when I got the opportunity to get a part-time job, I got a paper route, and this was somewhere around the 8th grade, and I was saving my money from the paper route, saving my money. And my first bass that I bought was a bass that was sold. I don't know if you guys remember this chain, but it was Lafayette Radio Electronics. Do you remember that chain of stores?
Oh my God.
Lafayette. I remember them. They were the chain of stores. Yep.
Shortly. Yeah.
Lafayette Radio Electronics.
Yeah, I think it was like a $79.
They predated.
Yeah, Circuit City, I think they became, right? after they became, after
Yep.
they went under as Lafayette, they became Circuit City. Anyway, it was a $79 SG
That's one.
shaped bass. And that's when I started learning to play, just kind of applying my knowledge from the trombone, which at that point I was not really practicing trombone. I was just going to my weekly lessons at school, not really practicing. So,
Okay.
but I knew enough to read a little bit of music. So I started to teach myself, but in a very mediocre way. I'm not ashamed to say. It's just I did the best I could for the tools I had at that point. So that was in 8th grade. And then somewhere around 9th grade, I started to take private lessons on trombone and discovered I could be really good at this music thing because I was actually starting to practice. That was the key, of course.
Wow.
I wasn't
Okay.
practicing anything really. And then I
Okay.
started practicing trombone and actually achieving at it, getting into the local honors ensembles like, in New Jersey, we have region, junior high region, wind ensemble, things like that. And I started all state. I started to get into all these things and even all Eastern when I was
Oh,
in
wow.
11th grade. And so
Okay.
I began to really achieve. And so I realized music, that's what I want to do. I want to do music.
Okay, great. So you decided that you wanted music, but when did you realize that this could be potentially a paying thing for you, where you're professionally making money, you're generating
Hmm.
revenue, at the same time
Hmm.
you're enjoying yourself? Look, we all want to be able to play, but at the same time we want to make a living, and at the same time have fun. So when did you find that? Was there a magic moment where that happened to you?
Yeah, it really started to hit me somewhere around my senior year of high school. I started to get calls from people I didn't know. People who would call and ask me to play a musical, people who would call and ask me to play in a big band, things like that. And by doing those things, I started to get my sight reading chops together a lot better. I was playing in the community band in Rutherford at the time. Um, During the summertime, you would have a rehearsal on a Monday night, sight read everything, and the concert was on a Thursday night. And that would go for a cycle of like 6 weeks in a row. So you were constantly reading new material and learning to be a better reader. And it just progressed there from when I got into college and started playing in college. We would put, brass quartets and brass quintets together, and we'd be hired for all sorts of things like wedding ceremonies and different things at churches and such. And by doing those things, it opens up your mind and say, wow, I'm getting paid for doing something I enjoy doing.
That's awesome. When playing trombone and I we had talked before. I had that thrust into my my early music education. One of the things that really just clicked for me is the advantage of a trombone is that it's I guess, monophonic instrument. You don't
Mm-hmm.
play chords. You don't play triads. You're not playing multi-note polyphonic passages or patterns, and it seemed to me now that it's a very advantageous process to get into the electric bass, because since you were reading, when you got into the bass and you saw sheet music, you knew how to transfer it.
Right. It wasn't, especially since the trombones in bass clef as well.
Yes.
So they share the clef. There was no new learning there as far as that part of it goes. For me, in the beginning, I was always a very weak rhythm reader. And my private trombone teacher really got me going as far as the correct way to read rhythms and how to become a better sight reader that way. And so that knowledge transferred to bass dramatically. But when I got into college, the bass kind of went on the shelf a little bit because, of course, my primary instrument at that point was trombone. So you're spending hours and hours practice. Even as an education major, you're spending hours practicing.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to Montclair State, studied with some great great players from the New York Philharmonic, Don Harwood, the bass trombone player there, and a guy named Doug Edelman, who was the principal trombone player for the New York Met Opera. So really, really some heavy duty players. So they really taught me a lot.
That's cool. I mean, you had people to look up to, and
Sure.
Even though you might not have
Awesome,
saw
man.
yourself in that direction, that it was you saw established players going, this is where a trombone can go.
Right.
Because from my perspective, all it drove me was isolation. So
Gotcha.
it was when I had seen people play guitar and noticing that they were, socially active and playing with other people, that I decided to get off the slide trombone,
Right.
and move forward into something that was more socially musical.
Yeah. There's no doubt. When I started playing bass was, I guess, the 8th grade. I got my first, like I said, I got my first bass, and shortly thereafter, I bought my first Fender bass, which I still play today. And there's something about playing in a group that I was not getting in a rock band, that I wasn't getting playing the trombone. Up till that point, I had no idea you could play trombone in a rock or soul group. I was very somewhat sheltered in that way until somewhere around the late 8th grade, a teacher played the band Chicago for me. And it was the first time I was ever able to put a name of a band to a sound I was hearing on the radio. And I realized you could play trombone in a rock band.
And be an asset.
Yes, that's right.
And be an asset. I think that's
Chicago
one of the
bands like.
I'm sorry?
I would say bands like Chicago, Earth, Wind, and Fire, and as of the '80s, if you join a ska band.
Yes.
If you joined the ska band, then your trombone playing was golden at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I guess it had to be somewhere around the 11th grade. A friend of mine, Mark Taylor, who was the brother of a girl in my grade, introduced me to Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes. The album just simply called The Jukes. And when I heard that album, it just blew my mind, because it was rock and roll with horns. Unlike Chicago, was more like jazz flavored, a little bit higher end. Chicago
arranged.
was. I kind of felt, but when I heard Southside Johnny, I was like, that's my music. That's my style of playing. I want to be doing that, and still all the while listening to the bass too, because I was playing bass at the time. So, all of that stuff was just piquing my interest big time.
Awesome. Did you get any heartaches from your parents when did you approach them and say, "Mom, Dad, I want to play this instrument called the bass. I want to play the trombone"? Was there any backlash from them?
You know what? That's really a great question, Anthony. And I tell people, our parents were saints with what they put up with. I don't know about your parents, but my mom sang in a group called the Sweet Adelines, a vocal group of women who sing barbershop harmony. So I was kind of brought up around music a little bit, and music always had a positive impact on me. And my dad was very supportive too. So, I mean, he'd come home from long days of work in the city, and he'd get dressed into his pajamas, and we'd have dinner and all that stuff. And he'd lay on the couch while we're downstairs jamming our instruments. We didn't have a garage or anything to play in. So they're listening to us play. And after a long day of work, I just give them so much credit for I say putting up with it, but I mean, in the same way, I've been supportive of my kids' musical ventures as well. But yeah, I mean, when my parents were very positive about it, but being blue collar and not really having the funds to buy all kinds of equipment, I learned the value of working for it at a young age. You guys ready for this? I was a carnival ride operator for a long time.
Really?
From the time I turned 14, I operated carnival rides with. It's kind of funny, right? I was a carny. Well,
get online. Get
Go
back there.
ahead.
Get back
Go
there,
ahead.
Fat.
Make
So
your
Stan.
jokes.
Get your tokens ready.
Yeah,
That's great.
um, a friend of mine, his parents owned basically what you would say would be a traveling carnival. The ones that go to the local church and set up 5 or 6 rides and game booths and things like that. And they lived right up the block from me. So as soon as I turned 14, I went up and asked for a part-time job. And so here's how it would go. We'd go to school during the day, right? We'd come home, drop our books off at home, or take them to work with us, jump in the back of a Chevy Suburban or a pickup truck or whatever it was with a camper top, and we'd head off to wherever it was. It could be as close as Lodi, New Jersey, or it could be as far away as Long Island.
Wow.
It depended on where the carnival was, and they took us there, brought us back, and somehow we managed to practice and get our homework done. And
But
but
that's fantastic training. I mean,
Yeah.
that would certainly prepare you for being an onstage musician.
Yeah, well, being on time.
So labor laws didn't impact that. Like they were like, he's 14, but he's talented enough. We'll make him work.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of thing where I'm not sure if this was on a wink or what, but we got paid. We got paid in cash under the table. It's just kind of what did I know? I was 14 years old.
That's an old school thing.
It's an old school thing. It put money in my pocket, and believe me, it allowed me to buy my first SVT rig.
Yeah.
With
810s? 810s?
Yeah, 810s. And the head as well, and to this day, I mean, I have an SVT VR sitting right over there. Nothing sounds like it, but being an old guy now, I just take my Mark bass out to most gigs.
A combo or a head?
It's the head. It's the little Mark 800, and I use the what is it? The 210 transporter cabinet they have, the 210P, I think they call it. And
what do you like about the head?
What I love about the head the most is it's got a really good sound, and bang for the buck as far as weight goes. I can't replace it. I had my first bout of, and now I sound like an old guy. I had my first bout of sciatica a few years ago, and I was like, I really need to lighten up the equipment that I'm using.
It happened to me. I mean, I still have an SVT combo. Which is 50 pounds. But, I ditched that. I got a Warwick Gnome that weighs 2 pounds and 300 watts. Yeah. And I replaced the speaker in a Hartke Kickback 12. And I got an Eminence that holds 200 watts at 8 ohms. And, I'm on fire with this thing. You could put multiple basses in it. And it's thick, it's solid, and it sucks up my active bass like nobody's business.
Yeah, I mean, for most of the gigs I play, which vary from weddings to corporate to large ballrooms, things like that, even some outdoor concerts. For most of the stuff, the 210 cabinet gives me what I need on stage to be able to function. Every once in a while, I'll add a 115 GK Neo to that.
Yeah, nice.
It gives me it'll give me what I need to get by. I used to have the Ampeg 410 HLF cabinet Pro.
Oh, wow.
Nice. And that's a beautiful cabinet, but super heavy. And like I said, I just had to lighten up what I was using,
I think when you buy something and they say to you, buy 2, get 1 for the price of 1, they should have literally been buy an Ampeg and it comes with a free chiropractor. It's just a guy who goes to your gigs and just stands there and he waits for you to hurt yourself. You scratch your back and you're right back in the game again.
The thought I had was that when you were buying an Ampeg, it wasn't going to move anywhere. So it was always the rig of choice whenever you walked into a bar that said they had a backline. You'd always see something that was like a piece of furniture as opposed to, I'll think about stealing this.
Oh, if it stayed on the stage, that thing was great. If as long as you didn't move it, you're fine. But either you need a chiropractor or a gym membership to at least learn how to move that thing around. That thing weighs.
Oh.
I think all of us at one point I used to have an Ampeg SVT back then. The old tube amp took a half hour to warm up when you turned it on, but once it was on, that thing was on fire. But
Right.
like,
Oh yeah,
For
I
sure.
had my first plunge into that was when Mesa Boogie came out with its 400 head, and they had a matching 215 cabinet, and that was like, you know, I saw Paul McCartney play it, and I said, you know what, I'm doing this.
Gotta have it.
I gotta have it, and I went to Robbie's Music when they were in Nanuet, New York. And
Robbie was in
and
That's
and
right,
I
years
plunked
ago.
down, and it was unbelievable until it broke, and at that point it was like, well, how do you get a Mesa Boogie fixed? And it's like, well, first you pray
Yeah.
that you could find somebody who won't charge you as much as the amp was to fix it.
Right.
And you know, I mean, it's just the way it went. But just the warmth of having 215s on stage was just, you know, incredible. Even though you're playing, you know, in a bar that held 40 people, who cares?
Right. I mean, we all went
Let's
through
talk.
that.
Oh yes, absolutely. Now let's talk about your influences as a bass player. So I'll put three questions into one. Your influences in the bass player, as a bass player. Who do you listen to on a regular basis that influences your playing? And how does this influence your teaching as well? As a musician, he's also working on the weekends to play in the band.
Okay, so probably my very first influence playing the bass would have been Peter Cetera from Chicago. And I think he's probably one of the underrated players today. And even back then, the stuff that he played was so tasty on all of those records. And
I agree.
And I think talking, it's easy to write him off as a fluff musician because of all the balladeering he did in the 80s. But, you know, listening closely to those records, it's undeniable the guy could play. And now, while he wasn't playing, you know, like Victor Wooten or Jocko in that sense, he was really holding down the bottom end. And then he was probably the first big one for me. And then of course, all sorts of other players as we go. Oh, wait a second. My screen was, okay, we're good. All sorts of other players as we go. You know, Rocco Prestia from Tower of Power.
Tower of Power, that's right.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
Yeah. So he was another one. I really was attracted to the band Tower of Power, of course, because of the horns and because of the bass playing. It was just a magnet for me on both of those levels. You know, the tight horn section, the tight rhythm section, Garibaldi on drums.
Garibaldi.
Yeah.
Oh God, Garibaldi, yes.
And then, okay, so now hear me out. So when I was playing with Southside Johnny and the Jukes, there was a girl who was kind of following the band, and she was running the fan magazine, and she worked at Radio City, and so she got me tickets to see Chicago. And who was warming up for Chicago? Bela Fleck and the Flecktones. This was back in 88, 89, and Victor Wooten had his solo spot. I had no idea who he was at the time, and that band was rather new at the time. I mean, Victor Wooten had to be, 22, 23, maybe somewhere.
Sure.
And I saw him play, and I turned to my wife, and I said, that guy is the future of bass guitar right there.
Wow.
You know, and I wish I could play like Victor. I can't. I mean, the reality is I cannot practice that much right now at that level of intensity to be like Victor. There's just no way. But there are
that's a special trait.
Yeah, it sure is.
Yeah, well, it's almost a physical anomaly.
Yeah.
And
then to see guys now like you know, I'm sure you're familiar with Davey 504 on YouTube and Charles
I think he retired.
Did he really?
I haven't seen anything new in a very long time. It's been a while.
Oh wow.
And I never saw him actually play out with anybody.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I think
I don't know if that was a COVID thing. but the level of his ability is, right there for
I've only
explaining,
seen
for
I've, I've only seen DB504 play once with a group, just one
It-
time. There's only one video on his channel
it could
where
have been
they
because
show
of
him
his
playing.
location. Might have been
Yeah, because
overseas.
I think he was playing. He was playing in Italy because he's from Italy.
yes,
Yes.
that's what I was thinking too. And then there's this guy Charles Berthaud, um, who I'm sure you've seen his videos, and both of those guys have been like social influencers more than group bass players, although they can easily function in a group just by
Oh, yeah.
watching them and listening to their grooves. But they've taken it to a whole new level. I mean, like Charles Berthaud has taken what Victor Wooten does, and he's made it cleaner, and he's made it
He
more
does.
precise and more. It's
Yep.
amazing to me.
Is that the
you
guy
can
on the 6-string fretless who plays like
yes,
he plays that glass
Yep.
neck, and he plays there's something
Yep.
like when I say a physical anomaly, how
yeah,
he can coordinate his head and his hands into
Yep.
these multi-part arrangements at once.
Mm.
And it's
These
not
guys
a
are incredible
guitar.
players. No.
Yes.
Well, the one thing that I will say is that Charles in particular, great player, but Victor Wooten did a thing that really, really, really hit home with me. He said, look, a lot of these players are technical players, but no one wants to hire you. You got to be able to perform. Because
Right.
that's really key, because no one wants to care. People, when you go into an audience, I know that I personally, as a bass player, don't care for bass solos. I really
Right.
don't care for if I like it. It's short, it's sweet, it's to the point. Same thing with drummers. Like when I see Rush live, and they go into YYZ, as soon as Neil Peart goes to his drum solo, I get a hot dog.
Right.
Then
Right.
I come back 6 minutes later. I'm like, up 6 minutes, because I know that's gonna be a 6 minute drum solo. And as soon as you hear go 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 go, I know they're back in the song. Yeah, but it's
The
like, all
magic
right,
is in the groove. Yeah, the magic is in the
yes,
groove.
the magic is
Yeah.
in the groove. So I
For sure.
like, for the moment, I enjoy seeing the technical stuff, but I'm saying to myself, get back into the groove. I can't
Mhm.
dance to your tapping. I can't dance to your solo. If I'm out
Right.
with my lady, even she's like, honey, I'm going to the bathroom. Like, I want
Right.
to dance. Well, I'm not dancing to this guy's solo. It's now annoying me. So you have to be able to, as bass players, as Victor Wooten says, we have to be able to stick to the groove. Our job is still to drive the groove in place and keep everyone moving.
100%. I agree.
I agree.
Yep.
And so for me, it was probably, I don't know, I want to say it was probably 1990 when I really got refocused on bass, you could say. Refocused because I was doing so much trombone playing at that time. And I got refocused on bass. I joined an original band from up in Rockland County there. And I started playing bass a lot more. And what was happening was I was getting a ton of calls for bass. Being a bass player that could read, I was getting a lot more calls for things like shows, like different types of variety fundraisers, things where you would have to go in and read charts and be able to play, and big band work especially as well.
Oh,
And
wow.
so
Okay.
it's almost to the point now. I mean, honestly, my trombone is now, I hate to say it, it's almost collecting dust. It's at that point. I'm just doing so much bass playing now.
No, there's a growth.
Okay,
I mean,
great.
there's something that
Yes, sir.
happens in the career that if big band was in, one of the things maybe is that it's getting more. The music is becoming more refined in live applications that need a trombone less and less, and that it's being incorporated into something else.
Yeah, and I think for me, I just haven't been able to have or find the outlet, except for and it's not only about money, don't get me wrong, but for horn players, most of the gigs, like you play high school musicals, or you play, in a big band, most of the gigs are low paying gigs,
Well, there's also fewer and fewer slots available.
Yes.
To play that role.
100%. As more and more players come into the scene. They're, and I should say, like with the big band music, I was part of a big band for about 10 years. And
Wow.
the Summer's Dream Orchestra, and you could probably find some of the videos on YouTube and such. But what we found is we would go from 40 paying gigs a year, and those were pretty good, pretty well paying as far as big bands go, to having very few, because our audience was dying off. The World War II vets and the people of that age group were literally dying off.
I'm finding that in biker rock, in classic rock gigs, in early 70s Zeppelin style shows, that because of 2023 and COVID, there's no more 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. band slots.
Right.
People aren't drinking and driving like it was a social sport. And, there's a lot of the change because of the age of the audience, that people want to go out and hear, guitar bashing isn't as in favor as it was 10 or 15 years ago.
Right. And in New Jersey, I don't know how it worked in New York. In Jersey, as they started to up the drinking age and the penalties became more and more severe, it has, the amount of clubbing people do has waned significantly.
I don't know if this rings a bell, but I actually played the Cricket Club. That was right off of the Garden State Parkway
in Irvington, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And it was just after we played there. It was just after the Happy Land Social Club had a fire, because there were no fire exits. There were no exits. And we ended up at the Cricket Club to do a 3-piece original set. And we had a lineup with 9 bands, and we were like the 8th band. And you only get paid if people clicked, slotted on somebody's paper that they were there to see you. And, you had to walk through 7 warehouse rooms to find this major center, and there was no way in, there was no way out. And I thought I was going to die, because we were there waiting. And, we didn't know who came to see us. And our band leader, guitar player, went up to the promoter and was like, okay, we want to get paid. And she goes, well, you're not really getting any pay. Like, nobody came to see you play. He goes, I know one person came to see us play. She looks on her list. Oh, yeah, $5. And he goes, I want my $5.
Yeah.
We waited all day to play our set and maybe be discovered, or maybe be seen, or maybe there was a label person here, blah, blah, blah. I want my $5.
Yeah.
And that's the way the Cricket Club went. I played all over Jersey during the early 90s, 92, 93, 94. And, I played at Shannon's underneath Route 80 when the OJ chase happened. And that was an experience, because the vibration of Route 80 shook the bar constantly. So, it was a much different, Ruins. We played Ruins in Lodi all the time.
Yep.
Yeah, that was
nice.
All
right, let's circle back. I want to circle back to one thing you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned that with your trombone and, of course, the big band, do you find that reading music is a dying breed?
I don't know. I honestly don't know if it is. I think musicians are always trying to stay ahead of that curve that makes them dinosaurs, right? So always trying to reinvent or remarket or change something about what you're doing that's going to find that market that allows you to play. So for me, and for the band that I'm in currently, the Yacht Rock Gold experience, it was about finding a niche for us. A bunch of us are playing in a band called Epic Soul. And we were finding with that band, while it's a great band and we have some awesome people in it, that what we were able to accomplish with the band was limited. In other words, there are a lot of soul bands on the circuit right now, especially in the New York, New Jersey, tri-state area. And we have been talking about the idea of, okay, how do we bring this to the next level? What can we do? And we were toying with this idea of some type of a tribute act that we could sell in theaters. Something where you could make more money, put a lot more people in the seats, and still also have fun doing. That was the key. Because if it's not fun, it becomes a job. I don't care how much money you make. It's still a job at that point. And so we've been kind of tossing ideas around. Yeah, we were tossing some ideas around with our agent, with about different types of tribute bands. And he says, he finally comes out with this and says, you know what? He goes, all these other ideas you're giving me, you have to do more than one type of tribute to fill up a theater. Like, for example, the Steve Miller Band. If you did a Steve Miller Band tribute,
you're done in 6 songs.
Yeah,
the songs are 3 minutes each.
Yeah, you draw some people, but you're not going to fill the place with that, right? So he said, but I'll tell you what, he says to us, if you put a quality yacht rock show together, I can sell that.
Well, yeah, that's like I don't want to say it the wrong way, but it's like it's like a classic FM radio block.
Yeah, for sure. There's enough music out there with enough appeal that falls into that genre.
It does now.
Yeah, that does, and enough people. They're all our age.
Yes.
Who would go see it and have the money to go see it.
Yes.
That it actually is working.
Well, I think one of the high points is that you're attracting couples.
Yeah,
it's not so much you're playing in a Van Halen band where there's single guys looking for crazy girls.
Right.
Yeah.
And
you're not dealing with the hookup. Yeah, you're not dealing with the hookup that everyone's always looking for.
So it's
not to be critical, but it's definitely a more refined scene. That's definitely more appealing to a greater number of people.
Yeah. I could tell you about one recent experience that we had this past summer on Long Island. We played Catholic Health Amphitheater at Bald Hill. And they took a chance on us. I mean, the week before us, I think Chicago was there. And believe me, I'm not putting us at that level or anything. I'm just saying, the week before them was Darius Rucker, I think. So they took a chance. They took a chance on us. We had no idea what was going to happen. And at the beginning of the night, it was looking rather, there was a warm-up act, and we were kind of looking out there, and there were a lot of empty seats, And we're back in our trailer and stuff. Yeah, we're back in our trailer. We had no idea what to expect. We figured, okay, we'll go out there and we'll do, the best show we do, and that'll be that. Well, wouldn't you know it? I mean, we get out there, and there's like 4,500 people out there.
Yeah, and Anthony will probably attest to this. There's a lot of promotion that goes involved going. This is the new act. This is how you're going to hear these music from bands that you're not gonna. They're not even going to come around anymore. You guys have a depth of vocals that is unusual in a live performance. And, one of the things that I see playing in a smaller size band is the fact that size is your strength.
Right.
Size is your strength, unfortunately.
Yeah, we definitely decided that the vocals would be front and center in this band, and for the lead vocals, and everybody's a lead vocalist who sings in that front line, as you know.
Yeah.
The leader of the band picked them because their voice fit a certain type that he was looking for, and decided to make that front line. Now, I could sing background vocals. Our guitar players both sing as well. The drummer sings, but why have us sing background vocals when you have 4 lead quality singers who sing harmony like nobody's business?
Mm-hmm. And it just for anybody listening, it's the Yacht Rock Gold experience, and these guys are incredible, and the way they play the types of music that is considered yacht rock, they are able to alter what's coming out of the band to really project what the theme is of what yacht rock it really is. It isn't like one band that sounds the same on every song. They really kick it up to give you the original sound experience. And one of the things I liked about the band is I'm a Manhattan Transfer fan, and they have that 4 lead vocal punch. And when you guys switch that up and then you switch into a Steely Dan, all the parts and the people singing them readjust. And so it really makes for a state of the art experience from a live band. It isn't like, well, I'm not going to use myself, but like they're not a cover band.
Right.
They're presenting it like they wrote it, but these are all songs that were top radio hits that you know.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and what continually amazes me. I'm sorry to step on you, Ant. What continually amazes me is when we have rehearsals, and we're rehearsing something new that the vocalists worked on their own, and we worked on our own, and I hear them for the first time. It's unbelievably amazing to listen to people who have such a keen ear for harmony sing all the parts that you were expecting.
Right, nothing's missing.
Nothing is missing, and you're not wanting for anything. So when they sing an Eagles tune, or when they sing Poco Crazy Love, it's just a great experience, to be part of that as a bass player,
All right, so this is my final and last question to you.
Okay.
What would you recommend to up and coming musicians who want to play in the circuit, or want to be in a rock band, or do they want if a rock star, or do they want to be on Broadway and play in the pits, or be a professional, like a teacher like yourself, and then be a professional weekend warrior? Like, what would you recommend to them, or what advice would you give to them?
That's a great question, Anthony. I will tell you the biggest piece of advice I have. One, be a good person. Try your best to get along with people. The second is be on time. Wherever you go, be professional about what you do. I like to say about myself, I am no Jocko. I am no Victor. I am no Charles Bethune. But I'm a known quantity. If I need to learn something, I learn it. If I need to be there, if we have a 6 o'clock hit, I'm there at 4:30, the latest. I like to be there, set up on time, ready to go for sound check. I would rather be waiting on other people than have people wait on me. And I think that is what, and of course you have to be able to bring a groove too. Don't get me wrong. You do have to be able to play. It's not saying you have to play. You have to be a good player. But it's that part about being professional that makes people want to hire you. Being that known quantity. And try and keep it, try and have that personality that allows people to interface well with you, and that you're not putting people off,
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. And that is true. And the comment on Victor Wooten, like you made a comment about not being Victor Wooten. Victor Wooten always says it best. Don't try to be like me. You're not going to get hired.
And he's right. He's right. There's
right.
only one Victor. There's only one Victor, and he's 100% right. It's not about the flash. It's really about the groove. And a lot of people will say, well, that's a cop-out. I'll be very honest about my playing. I am not that solo player, but I can keep a groove.
Yeah. To me, that's
I like
the most important part.
I like putting the solos in the groove.
There you go.
That's just me.
Like when I dance, when I go out, I'm at the point in my bass playing career, and I want to be, when I'm in the audience, I want to be in the audience. when I go out, like for example, the group Dancing Machine, they played the Westgate recently. The bass player maintains a groove, not the best, not the worst. I'm happy with him doing what he's doing for what I need for
Right.
that night. My girlfriend and I just to dance all night long. I don't
Right.
want him to solo. I don't care for him to solo. I'm there to hear him do Boogie Yogi Yogi from Taste of Honey or Boogie Nights or those songs as is. I don't want your
Right.
flavor. You know,
Right.
Well,
yeah,
I
I really
mean,
don't.
but that's the whole slap movement too. You don't see people slapping in a band and catching a groove, and there's parts going on, and part of this YouTube influence thing is watching everybody slap, and
Too much
I
of
forgot who it was, but they're always slapping by themselves, and
Yeah.
it was one of the things I was talking before. I think it was before we started about how this is partly a social function, that if you want to be an isolated musician, there's a lot of avenue for that with YouTube and drum machines and loops.
Sure.
But if you want to make the groove, you got to make the groove with others that respond.
Right.
And
You still got to play in the band. At the end of the day, there's
you
still
still got to
group
play in
here.
the band.
Good point. Yep.
Yeah, got to play the band's way.
We
All right,
appreciate
Amedeo
that.
Beef, Amedeo
We-
Beef Ciminnisi. Thank you
Yes.
very much for being on with us.
Thank you for having me.
You
It
were-
was a blast.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming on. I know we were bouncing around schedule wise, and
Yes.
we had a little time over the holidays, and I knew from just chatting with you, knowing you from your past, that you would be a spectacular guest on our program. And I want to thank you again. A lot to offer. There's always different insights. We've been speaking to rock icons. We've been talking to people who play on Broadway, people who want to sub for people on Broadway.
Sure.
We've been talking to all types of levels of players, and what we realize is there's a common denominator passion about the electric bass that unifies us.
Yeah, for me, I don't play upright at all. I've played with the upright in the past. I play fretless and fretted bass electric exclusively.
Awesome.